I had barely finished painting the front porch when a white SUV rolled up, tires crunching on the gravel like it owned the road. 3 people stepped out in matching polos, clipboards in hand. The one in the middle, short blonde hair, sunglasses, and that permanent smirk, didn't even say hello. "You can't stay here," she said flatly. "This property falls under the Maple Ridge HOA, and you're in violation." I set my brush down slowly. "Violation of what?" She smiled tighter. "Of existing without our approval." That was Karen, the kind of woman who thought paperwork made her royalty. She looked past me at the freshly restored siding and shook her head like she was inspecting something disgusting. "You painted it the wrong shade of white," she said, "and that mailbox is not compliant." I laughed once, short and sharp. "Ma'am, this house isn't part of your HOA. It was built in 1928, 10 years before Maple Ridge even existed." Her clipboard slammed shut. "We've recently expanded our authority zone," she said. "You're trespassing on managed property." "Managed by who?" I asked. "By us," she snapped, taking a step forward. "And if you don't leave by tomorrow morning, we'll have you evicted." Behind her, one of her board members whispered something about calling the sheriff. I almost laughed again, but then she leaned in, voice low and icy. "You can play dumb all you want, but we have ways of making people cooperate." For a second, the old instincts kicked in, the same ones I hadn't used since leaving my job as a county inspector 5 years ago. I'd seen people like her before, bullies wrapped in policy, and I'd beaten them before too. "Karen," I said calmly, "before you threaten anyone, maybe you should double-check who actually owns this property." She scoffed. "Oh, I know exactly who owns it." I smiled. "Funny, so do I." The way her eyes flickered told me she didn't expect that. I turned and went inside without another word, leaving her sputtering in the driveway. She shouted something about legal action as I closed the door. I just locked it, walked to the study, and opened my drawer. Inside was a thick envelope with gold seal, county records, deeds, and the letter that started it all. Because the house I had bought wasn't just old, it was a historic property, protected under a state restoration grant. The HOA had no jurisdiction over it, and soon they'd learn exactly how bad they'd messed up. Outside, I could still hear Karen yelling to her crew, "We'll get him out, even if we have to do it by force." I smiled to myself, flipping through the official paperwork one more time. "Then, Karen," I whispered, "you'd better bring more than a clipboard." Because the next time she showed up, it wouldn't be me explaining the law. It'd be someone she couldn't threaten. The next morning, I woke up to shouting outside. My coffee hadn't even finished brewing before I saw them. 3 trucks lined up along the street, all with magnetic HOA Enforcement Division stickers slapped on their doors. Karen was there, of course, barking orders like she was leading a military operation. 2 men in matching black shirts were hauling orange cones out of the truck bed, blocking my driveway like they were about to seize a drug house. I stepped onto the porch, mug in hand. "Morning." She spun around, her sunglasses glinting. "You were warned. You didn't vacate." "Vacate my own property?" I asked. "You're in violation of Community Expansion Code 12B. This house falls under our authority now. We have the right to enforce compliance and repossession." I sipped my coffee. "Repossession, huh? You got a court order for that?" One of her guys smirked and said, "We don't need one." That's when I saw it. The folder in Karen's hands wasn't legal paperwork. It was printed HOA stationery, the kind anyone could make with a decent home printer. She stepped closer, waving it in my face. "Sign the compliance form and we'll let you stay during review. Refuse and we'll call law enforcement for trespassing." I looked at her calmly. "Karen, you sure you want to make that call?" Her jaw clenched. "Try me." She turned to one of her guys. "Get him off the property." The man stepped forward, reaching for my arm. The second his hand touched me, I pulled out my phone, tapped a button and said, "You're live." He froze. Karen frowned. "What is this?" "Live stream. Right now, over 3,000 people are watching your HOA eviction of a private homeowner. You might want to smile for the camera." Her face drained of color. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I tilted my phone so she could see the flood of comments scrolling by. Neighbors, locals, even a few county officials. Some were laughing, others were tagging the sheriff's office. Her men backed away, muttering under their breath. Karen snatched the fake paperwork from my hand and hissed, "You think you're clever? You're playing a dangerous game." "No," I said, stepping closer, voice low. "You are." Right on cue, a siren wailed in the distance. She froze. "What did you do?" "Didn't do anything, but the county did. Turns out they don't take kindly to fake law enforcement or property fraud." Two sheriff's cruisers pulled up within seconds. The officer stepped out, calm but ready. Karen tried to talk first. "Officer, this man—" The deputy held up a hand. "We've already got the report, ma'am. And before you say another word, you should know your HOA doesn't have jurisdiction here. This house is a registered historic property. You've just committed trespassing, attempted coercion, and impersonation of authority." Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Her men were already climbing back into their trucks. The officer turned to me. "Mr. Walker, sorry for the trouble. You handled this right." I nodded, setting my coffee down. "Didn't want to make a scene." She did that for me. Karen's sunglasses slipped off as the cuffs clicked shut. She shouted, "You can't do this! I run this community!" The officer just shook his head. "Not anymore, you don't." As they led her to the cruiser, I finally exhaled. The crowd that had gathered, neighbors, reporters, and a few folks from town, started clapping. My daughter came out onto the porch, confused but smiling. "Dad, did you just get arrested? Or save the house again?" Saved it. And this time, we did it live. But even as the sirens faded down the street, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Because in all the shouting and flashing lights, I'd noticed something. Karen's folder had more than one signature. Someone higher up had approved those fake HOA enforcement orders. And whoever that was, they hadn't shown their face yet.
That night, the house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I couldn't stop thinking about those papers Karen had waved in my face. The signatures at the bottom weren't random scribbles. One of them looked official. Too neat, too deliberate. I'd seen that kind of penmanship before, back when I worked for the county property division, the kind that came from someone sitting behind a government desk. I pulled the crumpled page from the trash, smoothed it out under the kitchen light, and there it was. Approved by Regional Development Liaison, M. Harrow. My stomach tightened. That name had history. Marcus Harrow had been a big shot, oversaw zoning permits, construction bids, and every HOA approval in the county. He was the guy who decided what land could be managed by homeowners associations. And 5 years ago, he'd been quietly investigated for bribery, but never charged. Now his name was on Karen's fake eviction order. I turned on my computer and opened the county records site. My property showed the same as always, privately owned, historical status verified. But then I saw a note added just 2 weeks ago. Pending review, Maple Ridge HOA inclusion request. Someone had tried to slip my land under HOA control without my consent. That's when headlights flashed through the window. I looked out. A dark sedan sat at the end of the driveway. Engine running, lights off. For a moment, I thought it might be the sheriff doing a follow-up, until the passenger door opened. A man in a suit stepped out, looked straight at my window, then got back in. The car drove away without a sound. The next morning, I got a letter taped to my door. No stamp, no return address, just one line printed neatly. "Stop digging, or your restoration permit will vanish." I sat down on the porch steps, letter in hand, staring at the horizon. Whoever these people were, they were scared of what I might find, and fear meant leverage. That afternoon, I went to the county office myself. The clerk, a young woman I'd never met, stiffened when I mentioned Harrow's name. "Sir, you're not supposed to—" "Look," I interrupted, lowering my voice. "Someone forged an inclusion request for my land. I need to know who authorized it." She glanced around nervously and whispered, "It came from the Development Oversight Committee, but it was pushed through after hours. No timestamp, no clearance trail." "Which means someone used a master login. Only department heads have that." She nodded, swallowing hard. "Sir, please, be careful. Karen isn't just a loud neighbor. She's connected. Her husband's in contracting. They've been using HOA expansions to grab land for private resale. I stared at her. They're flipping properties under fake HOA rules? Yes, she whispered, and they almost got yours. That night, I went home with more than anger. I had proof. Real documents, real names. But as I unlocked the front door, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A voice came through, cold and calm. Mr. Walker, this is your final warning. Step away or you'll regret ever restoring that house. I didn't say a word, just hung up, looked at the window where my American flag swayed in the wind, and whispered, "You called the wrong man to threaten." Because the next morning I wasn't just defending my home, I was going to expose every last one of them. The sun barely rose before I was up, printing copies of everything I had: the forged inclusion form, Harrow's signature, the HOA's fake notices. I'd been through worse than this: foreign deployments, real enemies, but somehow this felt more personal. They weren't attacking my country this time. They were attacking my home. Around 9 a.m., I called my old friend Jake, a former Navy buddy who now works cybersecurity for the county IT division. When I told him what happened, he didn't even hesitate. He said, "Send me that file. If someone used a master login, I can trace it. They always leave digital fingerprints." An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Walker, you won't believe this. That fake inclusion request came from inside the county server, but it was remotely accessed from an HOA office computer." "Which one?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Maple Ridge HOA. The user ID is registered to, Karen Holloway." I almost laughed. She really signed her own name? Jake sighed. "People like her always think they're untouchable. But listen, there's more. The log shows she wasn't alone. The system was accessed by another user 5 minutes later, someone with admin-level clearance." "M. Harrow," I said quietly. "Exactly," Jake replied. "You're not fighting an HOA anymore, brother. You're fighting a full-on land scam. They've been quietly expanding HOA zones, taking old houses, flipping them under development contracts, and sharing profits." I stared out my window at the same fields Karen had tried to seize. "Then we'll give them something to choke on." By noon, I'd printed every piece of evidence and packed it neatly into a folder. Then I drove down to the town meeting, the one where the county board met every second Tuesday. It was open to the public, and today it was packed. As I walked in, heads turned. Karen wasn't there. She was still under review after the trespassing stunt, but sitting right up front, smug as ever, was Marcus Harrow. His suit was too neat, his smile too practiced. He noticed me and leaned toward another official, whispering something with that same oily confidence that made my skin crawl. When the chairman asked if anyone had a public statement, I stood. "Name's Daniel Walker," I said, holding up the folder. "I've got something the board needs to see, and the sheriff might want a copy." The room went quiet. Harrow shifted in his seat. "Mr. Walker, if this is another baseless property complaint—" I interrupted. "You mean the complaint you forged, with your name on it?" A few people in the crowd murmured. I stepped forward, placing the printed inclusion request right in front of the chairman. "This is a falsified document from your server, using HOA access credentials. It's signed by Mr. Harrow and filed by one Karen Holloway, who until yesterday was trying to have me evicted from my own legally registered property." The chairman frowned and looked at Harrow. "Marcus," Harrow's smile faltered. "That's ridiculous. Anyone could have—" Jake's voice suddenly rang through the speakers. He'd joined the meeting virtually, just as planned. "Not anyone, sir. Only a county admin can use that login. The system logs show it came from your device, Harrow." The room erupted. Reporters stood up. Harrow turned red, sputtering. "This is a setup. You don't understand how these systems work." Actually, I said, stepping closer, I do. And I also know what happens when someone uses a public office to steal private land. The chairman slammed his gavel, trying to restore order. We'll investigate this immediately. I leaned in, voice low but clear. Do that, but make it fast, because the live stream's already running. Harrow froze. He looked at my phone, blinking, realizing everything. Every word was being broadcast live online. He whispered, "You can't post that." I smiled. Too late. That's when his mask cracked. He stood, grabbed his briefcase, and bolted for the door, right as two sheriff deputies entered from the back. "Mr. Harrow," one said, "you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and profane," as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. As they let him out, he turned toward me and hissed, "You don't know who you're dealing with." I just stared back. "No, Marcus, you didn't know who you were dealing with." The deputies hauled him away, and for the first time in months, the room felt lighter. But even as the crowd applauded, I caught sight of a figure outside through the glass doors, a woman in sunglasses, watching from a car. Karen. She wasn't done. Not yet.